Casey.
Hey, Carissa.
How's it going?
Going good, going good.
Good. So we're excited about this episode today because we are going to be talking about the three biggest concerns that songwriters have about the recording process. And those concerns are pricing and cost, finding the best studio, and what is the process actually like.
That's right. I love when people say, we're excited today, but they say it really calmly like you just did. Like, we're excited today. Be excited,
We're
Carissa.
excited.
This is exciting.
Are you excited?
That was scary. You pushed it over the edge.
Sorry.
But absolutely, these are important questions, and they're questions that both you and I have had. Your first time recording at a studio was here.
Yes.
I grew up on the coast of Mississippi, and so I recorded a lot of different studios. And a lot of these questions we're going to talk about today are from my experience of just kind of not knowing. And at the time when I first recorded, this is how old I am, the internet didn't exist.
Wow.
So I know, right?
Wow.
I know. So, finding answer to these questions were pretty difficult. And so I had to ask friends or the person I was working with, which you just don't ever know. And so it was hard to find good information. So hopefully this will be a good solution for folks watching or listening.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's get started with the first big concern, which is pricing and cost. And so like you said, my first recording experience was here at Blue Sky, and pricing and cost was the very first hurdle that we kind of had to conquer and discuss and figure out before we even got started.
That's right. And when we're looking at the way that studios charge, you're typically going to see three rates: the hourly, a block of time, and then flat rate. The way the hourly would work is pretty straightforward. You pay a set amount of money that the studio has determined that their hourly rate is for whatever services you want. You pay that money and then you leave. So it's sort of a little more of a transactional style. The block of time, which we don't do that here at Blue Sky, but a lot of times you'll see bigger studios that are just spaces. They don't necessarily have staff producers, but they're just a really nice space. They might have a day rate or something like that. And in that situation, it's similar to hourly, but you would be there for a big amount of time with the engineer, or if you're bringing your own engineer, that kind of thing. And then the third, the flat rate, that's probably 70% of what we do here at the studio. And that's really a start to finish solution. So that allows the producer or engineer to work at different phases of the song, but it's all included. So there's no clock on the wall that you're watching or something like that. And so, that kind of helps answer how studios charge.
So how do artists know if flat rate or hourly rates are going to work best for them?
Yeah, it really is case by case. Typically, I say that if you want to do hourly, the best reason for wanting to do hourly is because your arrangement is really simple, like piano and vocals or guitar and vocals, or you've been playing with a band for a very long time. You guys are tight. You're used to playing together. You've rehearsed these songs and played them live a ton, and you can come in and lay those songs down. Hourly is going to be a better fit in that situation. Flat rate is going to be better if you want what we would call a more produced product. So if you're trying to really see what a song could be, if you want to add studio musicians, if you want to make sure that you're not cutting any corners, that flat rate's going to be a better rate for you.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, for me, in my experience, I was totally new at this, and I knew I needed a lot of help and assistance. It was just me. I was solo. So flat rate was definitely the best way to go, and it was definitely the most bang for my buck. Okay, so how much does it cost to record?
Yeah, so every studio is a little different. It really kind of goes back to looking at it in two different ways. So if you're working, let's address the hourly first. And so really the factor there is how prepared you are as an artist. Do you have your chord charts done? Do you have the song finished? I remember when I first recorded a song, I went in and it was like 50% done. I tried to write in the studio. Gone are the days of writing in the studio. It's too costly. So don't do that. So how prepared are you? And then on the hourly side, how many layers do you want to add? Do you want it to be multiple guitars or multiple synths, or do you want it to be something really simple? So that's sort of the big factors there. I will say, just as a warning, if you work somewhere else, we try to remind artists of this if they choose hourly. But the little dirty secret that I always remind people that studios will do, and this happened to me, is they an engineer might say, hey, yeah, we can knock out a few songs in an hour, which never happens. It takes
Right.
a very long time to record in the studio. Yeah, you can rehearse 10 songs in an hour. That's not how studio time works. You're under the microscope. You're hearing things, nuances you've never heard before. But the dirty little secret that a lot of studios won't tell you is they're going to need a lot of time on the backside to edit that song, to mix that song, to get that song ready.
Right.
And we try to tell people if they choose hourly, like, hey, for every hour we're in here, give us some time on the backside to get it right
Yeah.
once we're mixing. Now, on the
Absolutely.
flat rate side, that's the whole benefit of that, of how much does it actually cost to record. You know that up front. Now, another dirty little secret, learning this the hard way myself, because I had worked with a producer, and then I found out my friend worked with that same producer at a very different rate, and I was a little upset about that. And so that's one of the reasons we post our current pricing online. Now, that changes from time to time. We typically, every year, we'll do some type of rate increase or adjustment to what we're offering. But find out what the rate everyone's being charged is, because if not, that producer might charge you more if they don't like your genre, don't like you, or don't like the song. And so so there's some thoughts on how much it costs to record a song.
Okay, so here's kind of a big question.
I'm ready.
Is it really worth it to pay a studio to record my music? Can't I just do it myself?
You can as well. You can do an appendectomy by yourself, but I wouldn't recommend that. It's not probably going to be the best experience. Certainly, the two big reasons I would say to record yourself are, one, if you think you might want to become an audio engineer, or you have a strong desire to grow in that area of creativity, then record yourself, because you're going to
Sure.
learn a lot. And then the second reason is if you don't ever want to release it. And I don't mean that like sarcastically, but I know a lot of people who have worked on their songs or a song for years and years, because when it's at your house, when it's in your bedroom, when you're staring at it all the time,
Right.
it's pretty easy to go in there and recut that vocal. But that's kind of the bad side of it too.
Right.
The good side, it's sort of like two sides of the coin. Like, it's great, you can recut that vocal, but it's bad. You can keep recutting that vocal, which
Right.
might not be any better. It just might be different. And so, sure, you can record yourself. But I would say the biggest benefit to working with a studio, whether that's just an engineering studio or a producing studio like Blue Sky, is it lets you as an artist operate in a really sweet spot. When you're having to multitask, think about setting up your mics, thinking about setting up the compression ratios, your attack time, EQ. When you're having to think through all those things, it's hard to think about the lyrics you're going to sing.
Yes.
It's hard to think about what you really want to say in this song, or, hey, is that vibe really right? Or do I like this guitar part? Because you're having to operate in that engineering mindset. And so it's really helpful to have someone to free you up.
Yes, just kind of let go and let you be able to just do the music.
That's right.
Awesome. Okay, so another really big question. What all does Blue Sky Studios do?
So over the years, when I first started a little over 10 years ago, we kind of did a little bit of everything. We, because we were just starting out, I honestly didn't know what my sweet spot was, nor did I know what our staff at the time sweet spot was. And so we did a lot of different things. But for now, what we found is once the song is written to getting ready to release, that's kind of where we live. So that includes pre-production, working on the song, the production, getting musicians in, getting the artist or the band in front of the microphones, editing, mixing, tuning. Carissa here has been doing a wonderful job of tuning over the last year, adding that extra sheen to the vocals where you don't notice it's tuned, but it just sounds great.
Yeah.
And then we partner with a mastering engineer who masters all our songs, so he knows what to look for. He knows what style music we do, that kind of thing. Now, that's where we end. I do know of some people who really enjoy that marketing side, and I like talking about marketing, but I've just not found it that's really where we want to live as a business, helping people to market their music, distribute their music, and that kind of thing. Because honestly, a lot of that is just really straightforward, and there's people who just do that better than us. So
Sure.
we've sort of taken the approach of, if you want a good steak, don't go to Walmart where you can get a fishing pole, a steak, a t-shirt, but go to a
Right.
butcher shop. And so we want to be the proverbial butcher shop for recording studios where you can, this is getting weird, but you know what I'm saying? Like, we want to do what we do really well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to take away anything from this, take away the butcher shop part.
Yeah, we are not serial killers, I promise.
So let's talk through the second biggest concern that songwriters have, which is finding the best studio for them. Will I like what the end product sounds like? And what if I don't like the way the song turns out?
And this is a common hesitation. And I think it's one, honestly, Carissa, that I knew early on. And it's why I want to start the studio, because I never had really felt heard when I was recording with a lot of people. So I was like, man, I want to start a studio where people are really heard. Their opinions matter. Their voice matters. And then went on a few years, and I kind of forgot how big of a hesitation this is for so many people. I know for you, when we talked about doing your first project, you asked a lot of really good questions on the experience side of like, how do you handle feedback? How do you guys deal with, my opinions and that kind of thing? And honestly, your conversation was a big catalyst for like, we've got to remember how important that is to talk about that. Now we do that, but talking about it's important. So let me take a moment to just reassure you as the artist or the band who are thinking about working with us, we will listen to you. I might tell you your idea is stupid. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that. But we're going to take your ideas and we're going to listen to them. But more importantly, we've created a process that gives you touch points along the way. So from the moment we first hear the song and start throwing out ideas, we're going to ask strategic questions that help us to understand what you like, who you enjoy listening to as a fan, as someone who just enjoys music. And then when we get studio musicians in, we've crafted that part of the experience so that you can listen to the drum part and say, yeah, I like that, or that's not it. And we're all going to say, if you say, hey, that's not it, we're all going to say, okay, cool, let's find it. And we're going to help you get there, even when you don't know how to say it. And so absolutely, your voice matters, your opinion matters, and you are going to love the way it sounds because we've put checkpoints along the way so that we can stay in touch with what you're feeling.
Absolutely. So that kind of answers the next question.
Oh, sorry.
Will the team listen to my input as the songwriter and the artist? And the answer is...
we will not. No. Absolutely. Yes. One of the words I like to use is collaboration. It's kind of an overused word today, but I think it's a really honest word to describe the way we craft the experience here. It's collaborative.
Yes.
Even if I feel as a producer that, and Chris, I know this is true of you too, if we feel that option A is a better option, we're going to tell you that. And we're not going to tell you that in a way that's like really brutal or hurtful, mean.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we're just going to say, hey, that we think this is the best route. And if you say, I don't want to do that, then we're going to say, okay, no problem.
Right.
And I'm going to go home and I'm going to write in my journal how mad I am. No, I'm just kidding. No, but we know two things. One, you're going to enjoy that experience. If you say, no, I don't want to do that, or that's a bad idea, let's find something else, cool, that's great. This is about you. This is a service business that we're in. And then secondly, Carissa, maybe a little more meta to this conversation. So many times an artist, unique and familiar, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, I have a feeling, is really a reflection of what they've listened to and what they know that their audience wants in the first place. And so when they say, hey, I want this, they're usually right. Because even though we're looking through it as through an industry lens of like, hey, here's what's current, here's what's happening, a part being different or a little direction shift, like those things are certainly going to be trusted with the artist.
Absolutely. So how do you handle revision for feedback?
Yeah, so once you get your first mix, and again, we've had so many touch points along the way so that you are not surprised by anything. These are just the mixing process, the editing process is where we're taking everything, making it fit together better, bringing out the best ideas, because a lot of times we might throw 3 or 4 really cool ideas, but we've sort of got to decide for the listener, like, hey, here's the best idea. And it doesn't mean those other 2 ideas wouldn't exist, but they're going to be a little subdued so that we can highlight the really good moments, the best moments, kind of trimming the fat if we're using the butcher shop example. Sorry, I don't know why it keeps kind of making me hungry too. I'm telling you, I really am. But yeah, so once we send that first mix, the artist or the band has an opportunity to review those songs and send in notes. Typically, it's turn this up, turn this down. Hey, do we have a different take for this part? That kind of thing. We'll do another mix. We'll send that back to the artist. And usually by mix 2, we're kind of there. There are occasions where it just takes a little longer, and that's okay too.
Okay. So you kind of touched on this, but break it down. What is the process like?
Sure. So now we do write sometimes with artists, but most of the time the song is 80% done or complete. So we're going to do pre-production. During that phase of the process, what we would do is think through things like, hey, does this song need to be in a higher key? Does it need to be slower? Does it need to be faster? Does it need to be a lower key? What are the influences that this artist has on their music? Or, hey, what if we could do this? This is really cool right now, and this is current. During that pre-production, we really began to just set that trajectory for where the project can go. The second phase of the process would be the actual production, where we're bringing in studio musicians if needed. We're getting the artist in front of the mic. We're beginning to track and really build. And that is such a fun process. And you've probably seen, if you haven't recorded before, but you've probably seen what that's like on a show or a movie or something like that. And it really is a special time. And during that time, we're, again, having checkpoints along the way so that we know we're headed the right direction. And then the third would be what we would call post-production, or that would be the editing, mixing, mastering, where we're finalizing the track and really getting it ready for release.
Awesome. So how is the process different with hourly versus how it is with flat rate?
It's a great question. I'm glad I wrote it.
Yeah, you did great.
I did great. So it is a different process. One of the things I always say with hourly is the artist or the band is in the driver's seat. So you kind of have your foot on the pedal of like, hey, I just want to do 2 takes of this and move on. Or, hey, let's keep pushing here. Let's find another guitar part or another keyboard part or something like that. Or, hey, let's add some background vocals. Where on the flat rate, it's not that we're a little more in the driver's seat. It's just we're in the driver's seat together. Like, hey, let's do this here. Because at that point, we're not risking your dollars because it's not right. The clock's not rolling. So if we say, hey, let's try an extra background vocal here or a really ambient guitar part, there's no risk to you. You can say, no, I don't like that, and then we mute it. So the process is a little different, but it's more of how the process is driven along.
Okay. So what's the biggest difference between recording here at Blue Sky Studio or going to a big music producer in Nashville, New York, LA?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of something funny to say, but nothing's coming to mind. I feel like I had a joke I thought of when I wrote out this question.
Should have wrote it down.
We really do try to craft a really special experience here at Blue Sky. One of the things, one of the heart points behind Blue Sky when I first started it is I saw so many friends go to big music cities. They paid a lot of money, and oftentimes they mortgaged their house, like did a second mortgage to pay for the project, and were promised a lot of things, and rarely did those things come to fruition. And some of those friends are still 10, 20 years later paying on those projects. And so we really try to price things in a way that makes sense for somebody who lives in the Southeast outside of Nashville, New York, or LA. But we do craft it in a way that's a really, really special experience. Another nuance, and this kind of goes back to production. Oftentimes we've seen in big music cities when an artist who's not famous, they're not on a label, and they go to a big studio, they're sort of hustled is the wrong word, but they're sort of pushed through the studio, like the same musicians who played on the project yesterday and will play on the project tomorrow, play on your project. And so it's similar guitar parts, that kind of thing. They're not really starting from scratch and really trying to hear the artist heart behind that. And that's not so much a knock against the big music cities. It's just how they're working, because they're going to give their time to the big label artists who they're trying to get Grammys and awards and things like, and that's awesome. Like, that's not what we're about though. Like, we're here to serve artists and bands in a way that makes the project meaningful and significant to them. So our agenda is not a big payday at the end or a Grammy or something like that. Although that would be pretty cool to have. I mean, it could it'd sit right.
We got
there.
a place for it. It could totally happen.
We should just always leave that open as a reminder for where we want to put a Grammy.
So all of this process and all kind of going into the minutia of it, but how long does it take generally? Yeah,
so it's different from every project, and so much of it depends on someone's schedule. But typically a single might take a couple weeks to finish. That's from pre-production, production, and post-production. And then a bigger project, 5 to 10 songs, might take a few months. But really, it's up to the artist. We have some people who like taking a few vacation days and knocking out a lot of the recording. And if that's the case, then we can move a lot faster. And then we have some people who they're really busy. We're working with a couple teachers right now who their schedule's pretty crazy. So we have to look for holidays or weekends or things like that, or just random off days. holidays that they have. So
Sure.
yeah, it depends, but yeah, a few weeks to a few months.
Okay. Well, I think that's all the questions that we're going to cover in this episode today. We hope it was helpful and insightful. And we hope you just kind of get a little bit of who we are, what we're all about. So yeah, thanks for talking, Casey.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Carissa. Thanks for hosting and queuing up some good questions. Have a great day, everyone.
See you next time.